Okay, welcome everybody to the March Dover Trails and Recreation Committee meeting. I will call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm going to open it up for public comments. I have a public comment first, and that is to welcome David Yeagle. Am I saying that correctly, David?
You are.
Perfect. David is going to be our new representative from Mount Snow. He is not a voting member tonight because he still needs to be swapped out by the select board. But I did send him the link to all of our past recordings and minutes and agendas and all that fun stuff, and gave him some homework to do. So he's joining us tonight to listen, and then we'll get him approved by the select board at the next meeting. Sarah?
I'm sure you already did, but did you put him on the agenda for the next meeting with Jeanette?
I will.
Okay.
It's on my list of things to give Jeanette for the agenda. So yes. Okay. Any other public comments?
Well, Eric, just to clarify, he's going to take Sarah's Shippey seat.
Nobody's taking Sarah Shippey's seat. No. Did we lose Shannon? No, there she is. Shannon, who was we had
Brian
another
Donovan.
Brian Donovan was our representative from Mount Snow. I think he's busy, so
He doesn't work at Mount Snow anymore.
oh, and then he doesn't work at Mount Snow anymore, so that probably has something to do with it as well. But he won't be joining us, so David's going to take his spot, and like I said, I'm going to get him on the agenda for the select board to approve at the next meeting. Okay. Any other public comments? Perfect. Additions or changes to the agenda. I do have one. So Shannon, put on the agenda at the bottom there, you'll see it says next meeting, May 10th. And we always forget to put that on the agenda. We finally remembered to put it on the agenda so that I didn't have to go searching for it at the end of the meeting like I always do. And it turns out we can't have our trails meeting that night because that's actually pre-town meeting. I feel like trails is way more important, but I get outvoted there. So I'm wondering if we can push that May meeting to Wednesday the 11th at the same time via Zoom. Would that work for everybody? I know it's a lot of meetings that week, but 1, 2. Allison, did you head nod? Perfect.
I have a fire department training on Wednesdays at 6:30.
Okay. Okay. Tommy, would that work for you?
I'm sorry, the date one more time.
It's Wednesday, May 11th. It's just the Wednesday after the Tuesday we would usually, it's the second Wednesday of the month.
Give me 1 second.
Sure. And David, you as well, would that work for you?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, perfect.
Eric, I can't commit. I can probably commit for at least half the meeting, but I
Okay.
don't think I can be on for the whole time.
Okay. All right, so what we're going to do, I have 4 out of what will then be the 5 we need to have a meeting. I will reach out to Patricia and see if she's going to be available to make sure that we'll have our quorum. And then, but let's tentatively put that on the calendar for Wednesday, May 11th at 6:30. I'm sorry you guys can't be there. I just, with everything else, all the meetings and stuff going on, and Kristen, who's traveling today, so she would probably be able to attend as well. But we do got to get the meeting in, so it will be recorded. You guys can check it out after, but I'll send a confirmation email out to everybody once I've spoken to those other members to make sure we're going to have a quorum. Okay. All right. Any other additions or changes to the agenda? Perfect. Let's go ahead and approve the minutes from the March 8th meeting. Can I have a motion? Sarah makes a motion to approve the minutes from the March 8th meeting. Do I have a second?
Sure, I second it.
Oh, Tommy beat you to it, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. All right. So just some quick updates on things that we've been talking about previously. I mentioned it quickly at the last meeting and a couple of select board meetings since then. We got some stuff figured out. We have purchased and hung signs at the Crosstown Trailhead parking lot on Handle Road, as well as the town forest, saying no overnight camping. And there's little tents and a little van with a strike through it. So that should get the point across, and no fires. The Saturday, I believe it was the Saturday prior to the select board meeting when we approved this, I actually got texts from a number of people saying like, hey, there's like a full-blown motorhome like set up in the parking lot for the weekend. So we got those signs up there. David Smith, our handyman here in town, he went and hung those up for us the other day. So you should see those. Really hoping that takes care of the problem without having to go down a whole rabbit hole about times and all that other stuff. So we'll keep an eye on it. And, especially coming into ski season next winter, and hopefully those signs will address that problem. Any questions on that? Okay. If anybody had a camping trip planned for Crosstown parking lot, you can't do it. The Trails and Rec process docs, those were approved by our lovely select board and are now living on the economic development website, discoverdover.com. If you go to the link on the top that says our community and scroll down just under the Trails and Recreation link, there is a link to the Trails and Recreation process docs. And you will find out later tonight that we are already using those. Any questions on that piece? All right. And then the other thing that I was wanting to give an update on, and I think I mentioned it before, we did receive approval from Act 250, to go ahead and move forward with the parking lot project up at the town forest. So once our road crew is, getting through some of their ditching projects and things like that, we will have a few of them up there to finish that project for the expansion of the parking lot. It's not on here, but I have been working with Andy just because he has probably the most information of anyone about Phil Bartlett Jr. to get the plaque together, and we'll have the sign put together. I'll put that in front of you guys once we have it, and we'll get that up. And then once we're going to hang those, I would like to have, almost, obviously the town forest has been open a long time and whatnot, but I'd still like to do a bit of a ceremony up there when we hang those signs for Phil and get some pictures, and I'll let you guys know when that's going to happen. But I am going to go ahead and give Travis that go ahead to finish the expansion of the parking lot now that we have everything lined up. We will be following protocols on that for an approved project. I'll get photos in process and things like that so you guys can see how all that went. Okay, any questions there? All right, perfect. In your packet of things that I sent to you this week, we're going to move on to the shared usage signage, for that, at least the first piece of that trail at Crosstown that was the main concern. And we can have a further discussion about where else we might want to see them. Did everybody get to see that sign? Oh,
I did not able to open it.
okay, hang on. And I'm going to see if I can do this, and then Shannon, I'm going to be that guy. Can I have permission to share my screen? Oh. There it is. Thank you, Shannon. Okay. Share. That's an agenda. That's not what I wanted at all. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. So, our friend from Deerfield Valley Stump Jumpers, Mr. Garber, he shared this sign with me and said that this is what VAST is using pretty much statewide at this point to let the riders know that, this is in fact a shared trail. I feel like it covers the bases pretty well. There's not a ton of words on it, so it's not like we have to have anyone on a sled slowing down to read it, but it should get the point across that there will be, skiers and hikers and snowshoers and whatnot, bikers on the trail. How's everybody feel about starting with this sign to see what this does for our issue with the shared use? I got a thumbs up from Allison. I'm going to stop sharing just so I can see everybody. Mike, you have a question. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great sign, but we ought to investigate. There's also a number of trail etiquette signs that tell, like, little happy triangles of who's supposed to yield to who. Like the skier is supposed to, like, get out of the way when the snowmobile guy comes, I mean, that sort of thing. There's fairly standard, just so that everybody knows what people expect courteous people to do. So I would consider, adding those. They're fairly standard. But it's just like, when you're driving on the dirt road and the people are walking in the center of the road, and they give you the dirty look, and you're like, well, no, you're supposed to move over because it's a road, So there are those etiquette signs available that we could incorporate as well. But I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Mike, do you want to maybe take the lead and collect some of those signs, images of some of those signs that you're talking about, so that
Sure.
I think we have a minute on this one, right? Because there's probably nobody left snowmobiling on Crosstown. So we have a few minutes to talk about it before we have to get them up again. And I just want to make sure that we get it right when we do it. We don't want to just keep putting Band-Aids on things. So
No, people just understand, that when you're sharing, you have responsibilities, and, what they know, then it all works pretty good.
okay. So like I said, if you can pull up some, even just send them to me and I'll kick them out to the group before the next meeting. Just get some images of those signs that you're talking about, just so everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
And then we'll make we'll come together, make a recommendation to the select board on what signs need to go up and where we think they should go. And we'll put that in front of the select board. Okay. Does that work for everybody? If anybody has any thoughts or comments in the meantime, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about it. Okay. All right. We have invited Trip Morse to join us tonight. Trip has spent some time in my office and Shannon's office, and I believe with some select board members and other members of the public, talking about his interest and the overall interest in the creation and implementation of pickleball courts in Dover. Okay, so Trip did share some information with us. You may have seen in the packet, he provided us with, excuse me, just some information about what he was thinking about for that type of project. Obviously, there would be, some figuring out, where this is, whether it's a piece of land we try to purchase, or if it's a long-term lease type of situation on an existing piece. I think Trip had, in our conversations, had mentioned, possibly speaking to Mr. Kaplan about the tennis courts he has in between his OMT building and the green building, what used to be the green building on 171 Route 100. Everybody probably knows what courts I'm talking about. So he sent some links as well. Trip, did you want to say a few words?
Absolutely. This started as a pickleball project just because I recently joined the group in Wilmington, who it's a quite robust group of folks. And I asked where they play in the summertime, and their response was, we play indoors because there really aren't any courts that are surfaced well enough to use. And so, I drive up and down Route 100 and see all the courts that at one time back in the 70s and 80s probably were pretty active, back when we had the Volvo here and all that stuff. But those days are gone. And they're both the courts that Phil Waller is in the process of selling, and also Richie's courts are in disrepair. However, since I started with that, I thought, why just pickleball? If we find a good piece of land, and again, as Eric mentioned, thinking the 2 acres that Rich has just south of OMT, as well as potentially renting the office building that he also owns right below, which is also on an acre for parking, that we really put together an activity center that would be good for all ages. And I presented Eric and Shannon a list of other activities as well, with the idea that if we had something that was designed well, put together nicely, landscape, it would be a great asset to the town when you're driving up Route 100 to see people out there playing anything from volleyball to horseshoes to cornhole to spike ball to 3-on-3 basketball, pickleball also, and there's some other games as well as just having tables for some grandfather wants to go out and play chess with his grandkid. Just a nice space that people drive by and say, hey, what's going on there? And for the two businesses that are right next door, well, OMT right next door, and then across the road, TC's, I think it would be certainly a help to them, because now you've got all these people here that might wander over and grab a sandwich or a drink or whatever afterwards. But my goal was to put together a list of activities that would draw all ages. And I'm not sure if Eric shared that with you guys or not, but certainly open to other ideas as well. But that was just a start.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Trip. Does anybody have any questions for Trip about the document that he had sent?
Eric, I just have a comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think it's a great idea. I've never played pickleball, but I recently read an article, and apparently it's like the most popular recreational sport in the country right now, with leagues everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know, Trip, how familiar you are with like the entire Horace Hill project that the town's been working on.
Yep.
But Eric, I don't know either what stage or if there's room for improvements on that master design, but I know we don't have infinite room, but that might be a great addition to have a conversation about before everything's finalized. Whether it's just pickleball, we don't have infinite room, and I know we're trying to get some disc golf in there, as well as all the trails and everything. But I think that's be a pretty big asset for that whole downtown area.
Yeah,
So
thank you, Tommy.
I've heard, I had a long talk with Kristen Mumford a couple days ago. She's on a plane right now, which is why she's not on the line. And it sounds to me like you have some good ideas there. I think it's a great area to do some other stuff again that would attract people. One, because you got a hill, I was thinking zip lining. And another potential activity might be rock wall. And what I thought was we lease it out to Zor for activities like that, including maybe kayaking down the river and things like that as part of your project up on that hill. It sounds like there's 55 or 57 acres of land. Seems to me you could get very creative with that. And it comes down to the Valley Trail. This plot of land that I'm talking about just south of OMT also is right on the Valley Trail. It might be a great recreation area to incorporate a lot of different things.
Yeah, Tommy, I agree with your comments there. And I think, one of the issues that we face with Horace Hill is the the types of activities that we have planned for that are kind of suited for that terrain. Whereas like a pickleball court, basketball court, something like that. I mean, that does take not a ton of flat space, but probably more than what we have right there on Horace Hill. So I think this would be a situation where we would be looking at, a potential lease or purchase of another flatter piece of property to kind of achieve some of those goals. I mean, pickleball is definitely mentioned in the Weston and Sampson, report. And it really is. I remember, being at the chamber when it kind of swept into Wilmington, and before OSEC, I know that there was a large contingency of people playing out on the outdoor court, and now that OSEC is running full speed, a ton of people playing indoors as well. So I definitely think it's something, we take a look at and see what our options are as far as where we can go, what kind of space we can get, whether it's through a long-term lease or purchase, and look at what the costs are. If let's just spitball here and say it was, that piece of property in between on Route 100. I mean, we would have to figure out what the costs are to resurface that court.
I've got those numbers, Eric.
Oh, okay. If you want to kick those over to me, Trip, that'd be great.
Yep.
What I wanted to do was just we invited Trip here tonight. He, has supplied us with this information. Julia, I do see you. I'll grab you, I promise. He supplied us with this information. I just wanted to start the conversation so that we can start doing, and when I say we, I mean, my department start doing a little bit of exploratory work to figure out, what the logistics of this look like. I think it's a little less overall maintenance than what we were talking about, once it's completed than what we were talking about with an ice skating rink and things like that. So, if it's okay with the group, I will hop in and start, trying to get some of these finer details put together. Trip, I'll be in touch with you, and we can kind of work through some of this stuff, and we'll come back in front of the group. I think, once we have a little more of those details put together and a better idea of where we might be able to do this, and talk about getting the plan together. Does that work for you, Trip, and everybody?
Absolutely. One of the things I thought with this is, we've got the 1% money, and part of it is to bring people into the town.
Yep.
You could organize volleyball tournaments, you could have pickleball tournaments, you could have horseshoe, whatever it is, as a way to bring people to a spot. And eventually it could be a nice meeting spot for people in the town to go watch games or do whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. Julia, you had your hand up. Allison, I'll get you next.
Julia's muted.
Yeah, I think she's working on it.
I was just working on that. Yeah, that was actually my question. Wasn't that before the sawmill rink? Wasn't that where we were considering a rink? And would that be something that, is the winter use versus the summer pickleball use? And second question, do we have any feedback on how that sawmill rink performed?
We do, and I don't know. I thought maybe we covered, maybe my meeting with the owner of Farm Road Estates happened after our last trails meeting, but I did have a meeting with them, and that was one of the questions I asked them was, how do you think the ice skating went? Will you do it again? So they purchased the rink. It was a large rink, probably larger than what we were originally talking about. They also purchased, a few $1,000s worth of skates to rent. They recouped more than their costs in the first year. So in my head, because that service is already available, does it really make sense for us to continue down that path when we had so many questions about it to begin with, in terms of logistics and insurances and things like that? If that service is already provided by them, maybe we let them do that. I don't think it makes sense for us to try to duplicate that service. Does that make sense, Julia? Perfect. Sorry. Thanks for bringing that up, because I thought I had shared that information with the group. So I appreciate you asking the question. Yeah, I see you. Hold it, Sarah.
Okay.
I have Allison first, and then I'll get
Okay.
you. Okay. Allison, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say I love the idea that Trip's come up with. We've been thinking that, every time we walk past that building there would be ideal as a welcome centre, area for people to come if they're playing pickleball and that type of thing. They may want to meet afterwards, because I know it's got the facilities to be a coffee shop or something like that. Which, the Six Marks volleyball always used to be very popular, and so I think it would be an excellent idea.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. Sarah.
I just wanted to say regarding the Farm Road Estate ice skating rink, they've put in an application to install a canopy, a permanent structure over it. So it will also have they'll have the ability to do it even in inclement weather. And it's going to double as a function area for weddings and reunions and that kind of thing.
So I was with the Levests today. I do their insurance, so I was with them for about an hour today. And they were talking about that, exactly what Sarah is talking about. They're running into problems there because the state fire marshal wants them to put sprinklers, you know, with the canopy over it, which is about a 150 grand ticket. And that's crazy to have kind of an open area where you got to put sprinklers in. But they're calling it, I don't remember what they were calling it. So Mike is trying to get around that, but that is the plan. The hockey was a hit. Stephen O'Hearn had run the hockey like that over at the Hermitage Gym when he was manager there. And much to my chagrin as the insurance guy, he had broom hockey and a bunch of other stuff there without helmets or waivers or anything, but I digress. So, you know, that is a good spot. If you wanted to do something, the 2 courts that Richie has there, you could do it right on top of that in the wintertime.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, I think Tripp and I will put our heads together. I appreciate everybody's feedback and support, you know, for this idea. I mean, we all know that this group, as well as our select board, like to see concrete numbers, right? Like we gotta get some solid stuff together. We'll and Tripp and I will work on that, and we will come back and talk to you about it after we've had some further discussions and find some potential landing spots for this, and continue the conversation. Okay.
So last but not least, I did talk to Rich Kaplan. He was out in Colorado. For those of you who don't know, I've known Rich since he was 13 years old. He grew up in my hometown, and he and I have been friends for an awful long time. And he loved the idea. He is trying to sell OMT, for those of you I'm sure have heard that. And I asked him, I said, you know, have you got any buyers? He said, we got people we're talking to. I said, could you maybe just feel out to them how important those 2 acres would be? And you know, he, you know, as Mark Wallace said, he could sell it to the town for a loss and take the write-off. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think Tripp, I will. I think I'll talk to Rich just so it's coming from a town department, you know, just to kind of broach that conversation with him. And like I said, you and I can continue to put our heads together, and we'll come back in front of the group with a plan. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much for providing the group with the information and for joining us tonight. And I will be in touch with you soon on it. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thanks. Okay. Moving right along. The first person or first organization to come through our Trails and Recreation process documents is at this meeting. So Mike Garber, on behalf of Deerfield Valley Stump Jumpers, has submitted an application through the process to receive funds to make repairs to some drainage issues on Hathaway Trail. Now, this is a situation that we've talked about before, and we had tabled it. Mike was kind enough to provide us with the meeting minutes of, you know, kind of when the money was first approved by the select board, and then when the discussion was tabled. Now, you know, he had visited with us at the select board meeting. What was it, last meeting, Mike, or 2 meetings? Last meeting, I think.
Yes.
To discuss, you know, putting those funds for repair back on the table. So that's the first discussion on Hathaway Trail that we're going to have tonight. Mike, did you have any comments to make on your application or the process for your repairs on Hathaway Trail?
I think it's a little misleading to say that the funds that were denied were only for Hathaway Trail. They were not.
Okay.
They were part of a much bigger project, of which 2/3 has already been completed. I'm not asking for that money to go towards those completed situations, but the fact remains is that the money was not just for Hathaway. And when the recommendation from the Trails and Rec Committee went to the select board for us to stop working on Hathaway Trail, it did not include any literature of the $10,000. The $10,000 was magically taken away at the select board meeting without the representation of me, who was not there, and you and our person who was representing us at the time. I think it was an oversight at that point in time at the select board meeting. But I just want you to know how I feel about the money that was bestowed upon us and then magically taken away.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Does anyone have questions, comments on what Mike just said or the application that he submitted to us? Mike Purcell.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, generally speaking, on a class 4 trail or road, the users are liable for damage or maintenance. So I'm just curious, these repairs or funds that are being extended to a group, is this just to address, sort of regular, deterioration or lack of maintenance by the town or anybody else to just keep that class 4 access serviceable to the public at large? I'm just curious how that works, or what the money or whatever portion of the money or whatever money was earmarked for that particular project. Was that sort of a recognition that the town needed to contribute as well to that class 4 access?
So I will update, in the time since we last spoke about Hathaway Trail, it has been finalized that Hathaway Trail is not in fact a class 4 road. It is classified as a legal town trail. Okay, which is not, it's a separate category than a class 4 road. The original discussion and the issues, and I believe photos originally that were provided by Mike and the stump jumpers, showed that mud pit. And the last time that we had this discussion, everybody was in agreement that, that mud pit was absolutely an issue. People were losing shoes in it and whatnot in the summer when they're hiking. So they came to us and said, hey, and Mike, if I misspeak here, please feel free to correct me when I'm done. But they came to us and said, hey, we're getting, a grant for $10,000 from, was it VAST or the state?
From VAST.
From VAST. And we would like, for these 2 projects, and we would like you guys to match that $10,000 to allow us to complete the work on both of those projects. Now, Mike, just to confirm for the group so everybody knows what we're talking about. The invoices that you provided to us and the other project that was included when the funding was first granted, can you just tell us where that project occurred? Like what trail that was on?
So let me quickly go through everything that's been done already. So we have a 12-mile stretch that starts at North Branch Fire District that goes all the way out to Somerset Reservoir. We call that C100. On that trail, we did realistically 3 things. We went in with an 18,000-pound mini excavator. We graded the whole trail. Grading consists of making it flat and making sure the water runs off to the sides. With the weather patterns the way they are, this is stuff that hasn't been done for 10, 20 years. So you grade it, you put in drainage, which is clearing out which is putting in new culverts, which is clearing out the drains on the sides that have material in it and buildup, and it's just debrushing. So you had a 12-mile stretch that was taken care of from North Branch out to Somerset. Then last year we came in and we did the Windy Hill section of it, which is the trail that goes down to the gas station, to Rich Warner's gas station, and then continues on to the saloon. So that's more or less 2/3 of the project right there. Those same things need to be done on Hathaway. Hathaway is eroding. It is washing away. Drainage needs to happen. And, that's what we're asking for. So when it comes to the money, You have receipts already of, I would say, $17,000 or $18,000 that was spent on the other 2/3 of this project. 10 that came from VAST, 7 that came out of our pocket, and now we're asking for money to complete Hathaway. When it comes to that mud pit, I cannot guarantee that we can make it usable enough for Jeeps to keep abusing it. We will maintain it to the hikers and to the snowmobilers and to the bikers. But when it comes to motorized vehicles tearing up that trail again, we can't guarantee the longevity of that type of situation.
Right, and I think that's absolutely a part of the second conversation that we're going to have on Hathaway Trail tonight. So I think we'll stay focused on the repairs for now, and then we'll discuss. I'll tell you right now, Mike, like I don't want to have to dip into my budget every couple of years, $10,000, because one particular user group is not pulling their weight in the maintenance of the trail. And I know that they wanted to help with the maintenance and things like that, but I think there were also some, like, it seemed like there might be some strings with that in terms of advertising and promoting the trail that way as well. So with this part of the conversation, let's stick to, the repairs that you're looking to make and the application that you submitted. Okay. Does anybody have any further questions or comments, or Mike Purcell?
No, just to understand. I mean, that makes it much clearer. If you would think that the recreation board folks would see an opportunity to leverage, the repair of a stupid gooey area that everybody can. Well, I deal with them too. So there's just some that need somebody to do something, and it's going to take a machine, and none of us are to have, to leverage that, those resources with the vast people seems like I don't know why they would want to deny that. I mean, I'm all in favor of that. Shoot.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Sarah Shippey.
So, and I apologize, you probably explained it perfectly well, but I'm kind of whiffy tonight. You sent us receipts for work that's already been done. Is the money that you're asking for to pay off that, or to do additional separate work that has not yet been, that there are no receipts for yet?
That is correct, Sarah. Everything going forward would have new receipts. All the receipts in front of you have already been paid and are behind us.
Okay.
So we're not asking for any of the money that you're requesting to go into paying bills that, like reimbursing you guys for bills that have already been paid.
I really don't know how to answer that, Sarah, because the money was given and taken away. I'm a little upset at the way that whole situation went down.
But that's not, so answer the question that no, you're asking for the money to be given back. And
I'm not asking for the money to be given back.
Okay.
This is all for new receipts going forward.
Okay, so the money that you're requesting will not reimburse anybody for the money that's already been spent.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Julia, did you still have a question, or is your hand still up from? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So I think at this point, if everybody's happy with the information that's been provided and the questions that have been answered, do we want to make a motion to make a recommendation to the select board to proceed with, reinstating those funds for the repairs on Hathaway Trail? Mike Purcell. Oh, Matt Nicholas. Sorry, Mike, I'll get you in just a second.
I'll say I will make that motion that we provide the funding stump jumpers.
Oh. I do have to hold on one second. Sarah, you're my rules person here.
Okay, what's your question?
Does the funds would be given to Deerfield Valley Stump Jumpers, of which Matt is the chair, the seat for the Stump Jumpers. Does the second, does he need to recuse himself from the vote because he is a member of the organization receiving the funds? I'm not trying to make things complicated. I just don't want any.
I don't
gray
believe
area.
he does. I don't believe he does.
Okay.
I mean, select board members vote on whether select board members get raises, so.
Okay. I wanted to make sure. I want to make sure we dot the T's, dot the
Eric,
I's.
I'm
motion
happy to
is
make the same motion if that takes the conflict out of it.
Let's do that. Tommy, go ahead. Matt, if you're okay with that, I'm going to have Tommy make that motion. Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Wait,
Okay.
hold on. But we want the motion to be that you bring this recommendation of funding this to the select board, correct?
Correct.
That's what everybody means.
That's
right?
yes.
Okay.
I move to bring the funding question for the Hathaway Trail that the Stump Jumpers received to the select board.
Okay. I have a second from Mike, and now we'll open it back up for discussion. Sarah Shippey.
Are we putting in a dollar amount in the motion? Or a not to exceed?
In the recommendation or
In
in
the
the motion, rather.
recommendation, are we putting in a number not to exceed?
Let's see. Mike, just so I get this clear, you are looking for a funding from the town of Dover according to your budget of $10,000. That is correct. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So not to exceed, can we amend that motion to say not to exceed $10,000?
Tommy needs
Sure,
to make
sure.
the amendment and Mike
Yep.
needs to second the amendment.
Okay.
I move that the Deerfield Valley Stump Jumpers receive funding up to $10,000 for the repairs of the Hathaway Trail, that is moved to the select board.
Thank you, Tommy. And a second from Mike, correct? Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Right.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Aye.
Okay, we are all set. So Mike, I'm going to go ahead and get you on the agenda for Tuesday. And I'll provide these documents that you gave me and I shared with the committee. I'll give those to the select board. And can you make Tuesday's meeting?
Yes, I will.
All right, perfect. So we'll see you Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for bringing it to us. And thank you for going through the process. If you have any comments for me about how that went for you, please feel free to share them with me because I'm trying to make it better all the time. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the last thing on our agenda, and no part of me, okay, is expecting us to leave this meeting tonight and say, hey, we figured it out. Because number one, I was not able to reach all of the interested parties that have been recommended to me all the times that we've had this conversation. So I'd like to take tonight to restart the conversation about the potential uses for Hathaway Trail. Now, I was mentioning earlier, we have established that in fact, Hathaway Trail is not a class 4 road. It is a legal town trail. What that allows is the town to say, we want to put, we'd like to close that to wheeled traffic. Okay. Or, we'd like to limit the uses of that trail. Now, there are a number of things to consider here. This is a slippery slope. Okay. Because it opens the door for other recommendations to be made that maybe a bicycle ruins a trail. Maybe hiking ruins a trail. And I know that those things sound absolutely ridiculous, but there is the potential for that conversation to get started. The other, Mike, hold on. I know I got you fuming mad because I said bikes ruin trails. I promise. The other piece of it, okay, is that Hathaway Trail is literally just the entrance from the Dover side. Okay. We have connectors to that trail coming in from Wardsboro, from private trails, from the town forest. There's all kinds of other access points to this road. Okay. So even if we were to say, yep, we're going to put a gate up and we're going to close it off to wheel traffic, that's not the be all end all solution. Okay. There's a lot to this conversation, but what we're going to do tonight, and I just want to get initial thoughts and comments and feelings from everybody on the topic, about the potential uses or exclusion of uses on the trail. Okay, so that's my piece. Mike Purcell, you had a comment.
A couple of comments. Whenever you think about multi-use, you have to determine whether or not the shared use is appropriate. Just like, sometimes the horses don't belong where, the walkers are, because the trail isn't designed that way. Personally, I don't believe that the legal trail, that's Hathaway Trail, is designed or will sustain, motorized use, except in the wintertime. That being said, I help manage the Hogback ski area. And, the bulk of the damage that is created is from, the millions of hikers that, choose to go out there, with their rain gear and aren't concerned about, the damage from the foot traffic. So I think whatever resource we have that we're willing to share or allow people to access, because it is a legal trail, does allow for public access, we'll need to monitor it and identify when the trail is open and when it's closed, whether it be walkers, bikers. Again, I'm not, thrilled about ATV, etc., but it happens in all the bike networks, and even, if you watch the news, they're telling people not to even hike. So I think it's not one user group per se, but I think our group needs to take responsibility for saying, once these guys repair that big gooey spot, we should be telling people not to go through there after the big stupid rainstorms in April. So I'm just saying we should have that responsibility for all users once we decide who we're allowed to share.
Okay. Appreciate the comments, Mike. Sarah Shippey.
So first off, I just wanted to say that if we prohibit one user group from one trail, we are not obligated to consider every other user group on every other trail. In other words, we can pick and choose. That's legal. That's you don't have to have, every situation can be determined on its merits. So if we say no to four-wheel drive trucks here, that doesn't mean we're saying no to them anywhere else. And it doesn't also mean we're automatically have to consider every other mode of use, and to be fair.
Okay.
That's not required.
Okay.
I understand what Mike's saying, and it's true. There are certain times, certain weather conditions where nobody should be on a trail, right? And then there's other times when certain user groups are going to be lower impact and they might have use when others don't. Part of the conversation is going to have to be who's going to make that determination and how frequently does it have to be made?
Right.
Like, do we go out every day and somebody's job is to cruise the trails and check them? Do we have certain points that we go to and use those as barometers of what the rest of the system looks like? Do we do it once a week? So that's part of it. Mike, stop shaking your head. we need to have that conversation. If we're going to talk about closing trails, we need to talk about, we're not just going to say, okay, no three-legged walkers are allowed on this trail, but two-legged walkers are, right? Nobody with skinny tire bikes can go on, but fat bike tires can. We need to have a conversation about how we're going to make the determination of when a trail needs protection and what sort of protection it needs.
Thank you, Sarah. Mike Purcell.
Well, just like the Forest Service has a season, they have general guidelines where, things open up Memorial Day. If anything, it's more the unusual occurrence when, just like, our gardens, right? Everybody says, don't plant until Memorial Day. I mean, there's just certain periods, or even snowmobiling, it'll start, I don't know, after November or December 1st or what. I mean, they have some general guidelines that you can use just based on, annual weather conditions as a basis,
Yep. Thank you, Mike. Other thoughts, comments?
So,
Hold on, Mike.
Okay.
Mike, hold on one. Sorry, I have Matt before you, and then I'll get you right after, okay? Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything Mike and Sarah are saying. I don't know if entirely banning user groups is the right way to go about it, but we do need to protect the trail, and keeping people off it during mud season is definitely probably the best way to do that. And then for additional weather events, like they're saying.
Yep.
I think the National Forest, they're like class 4 roads, like Castlebrook Road. I think they open May 15th. Usually they open the gates, and they close them December 15th. I don't know if we're gonna go with gates or not, but if we do, that's something we should look into.
Yeah, and before I go to Mike Garber, I was just using a gate as an example. So please, anyone listening here, anyone listening to this after the fact, we're not just implying we're gonna go start sticking gates everywhere. It was just an example of, an option. Okay.
Yeah, I think gates would be effective for sure. It is definitely an option to consider.
Okay. Mike Garber.
I'm pretty sure I've already had this discussion with this board back in, I want to say June or July of last year, when I asked for trail closures relating to weather events. And I'm pretty sure I was given approval at that meeting to close the trails depending on wet weather events. So, I think that's an easy decision for this board to make. How we would close them needs to be discussed. And really, we should start talking about where gates and or ropes would be most effective. To close off Dover is not all that hard. When you put one at the bottom of Hathaway, you put one at Cheney Brook, and you put one somewhere to cut off Wardsboro. It's not that difficult. So I just want people to, think it through, because we have, and figure out what works best for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, I would just, I just want to reiterate, like from my standpoint, in no way, shape, or form do I want to discourage, I know that that's a large demographic of people that partake in that particular, outdoor activity is four-wheeling and jeeping and, four-wheelers and things like that. My concern is that when we're here and then, in front of the select board talking about, providing stump jumpers with $10,000 to make repairs to the trail, if a user group is using that trail and we then have to go back a year, 2 years, even 3 years later and fork out another $10,000 because we're having the same problem, that's my concern, right? Is that we just keep throwing money at something that we probably aren't seeing the return on in terms of that demographic or user group. And I there's probably a more diplomatic way for me to say that. But I just, that's my feeling at the moment. I mean, like Mike said, we've been having this, we started this conversation on Hathaway Trail last year. So, everybody's had plenty of time to think about it and stew on it. And I'll be honest with you, I've gone back and forth a number of times, on my thoughts or feelings about the uses of the trail. And that's, this is where I am right now. David, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just as it's all right if I share a thought here.
Yeah.
And maybe this has already been talked about. Maybe this is already, like I said, I'm just getting in here and listening. But something I've seen that has been helpful in other places, particularly pertaining to mountain bike trails and things like that, has been, you talked about signage before, has been some really good signage and communication around self-assessing trail viability, i.e. things like, hey, if you're if your bike leaves a mark in the trail, it's not time to go riding, time to go home, right? So like communication around that point, around this idea of, and you could set up multiple variations of that, right? You've got, depending on what you're doing, if you're hiking, this is what it looks like to be good, this is what it looks like to not be good. If you're biking, this is what it looks like to be good, this is what it looks like not to be good. Get, just as a educational piece, is a good starting point to say, you know, because I don't know how many people, there's always going to be someone who's out there who doesn't care, who's just going to be, you know, who's just going to rip things up. But I think a lot of people, generally speaking, in my experience, like the trails that they want to keep the trails that they're operating on in good shape. And if they've got good guidelines to work on, sometimes that can help alleviate some of that in the long run. Anyway.
No, I very much appreciate that comment. You know, I think that in conjunction with, you know, possibly a seasonal approach like we were talking about earlier and things like that, you know, somewhat like what I'm hoping for with the signage at Crosstown and Town Forest is that, like, hey, if we tell people it's not the right thing to do and we educate them, hopefully, you know, most of this problem takes care of itself. So I appreciate the comment, David. Thank you. Mike Garber, you have your hand up.
Well, once again, I want to be clear here. This discussion started when the Jeep group came in. There was never an issue with ATVs. There was never an issue with anything else other than when the Jeeps came in and really were the ones to make that mud pit what it is today. I think everyone, I personally think we can all go home and think about it, but I think they're the first user group that we have to really consider knocking off the totem pole of using Hathaway Trail. And just Jeeps.
Or larger vehicles is what you're saying. Like, okay.
Listen, we know ATV riding happens, and I'm sure it doesn't happen legally, but that's not the user group that set off this discussion. The user group is the Jeeps.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Sarah Shippey.
Okay, maybe this is an ignorant question, but is making the trail too narrow for a Jeep an option?
No.
No? Okay.
It'd be too narrow for our groomer then too.
I'm sorry?
It would be too narrow for our groomer too. The groomer's
Oh, okay.
10 feet wide.
I was picturing snowmobiles not being compared to a Jeep.
What is the width of the groomer, Mike? Matt, just out of curiosity, oh, there he is.
Hello.
Hey.
This is Lenny, our chief groomer and groomer of the past 13 years.
I've groomed for 14 years. In a groomer width, we need at least 14 feet wide.
Okay.
And it's not only the mud pits, it's an issue out there, really. There's about 1,000 feet of kind of like canyon out there that we go through that I barely got enough room with the wings to get through.
Okay.
So not only the mud pits, would like to cut back the edges a little bit to give us just a little more room, because there's so many places out through there that if I meet a snowmobile, he can't pass me, I can't turn around. They have to maneuver in that 12-foot canyon to turn around to get out of the way. So we'd like in those couple of canyons to widen it a little bit more, so hopefully sleds can get by. And with the Jeep issue, it's not only the mud holes again, there's inclines up there. And of course, as anybody knows, like up on Mount Snow, you put water bars in on the hill to divert the water. Well, with Jeeps and everything going up the hills or down the hills, they cut into these water bars. And then it defeats the purpose of the water bars. And it's right back to step one, muddy trails. And during the winter, it cuts into the ice. So on the lower half of the Hathaway Trail, there's a gouge right down the middle. You know, it depends on how thick the ice is. It could be 8 inches, a gouge down the middle. You catch a ski in that with a snowmobile, it's not very pretty. So that's what we need.
Okay. Thanks, Lenny.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have any other comments on this tonight? Realistically, this, like I said when we started this conversation, I wanted to use tonight to restart this conversation. I don't see us coming to a conclusion on this piece of it, overnight. There's no magic wand we can wave and just fix the problem. But I just wanted to get the conversation back in everyone's mind. I appreciate everyone who was a part of the conversation before, who's kind of reminded everyone the kind of things that we were talking about. And we will continue to have this, on the agenda until we can come to a conclusion about how we best think to present it to the select board that we move forward with it. Okay. So if anybody has thoughts on it in the meantime, please, by all means, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk. Okay. I'm in the office. If I'm not in the office, I'll get back to you real quick. So don't hesitate to reach out via phone, via email. I'm happy to talk about it, and let's do some more thinking on it, between now and our next meeting, and we'll continue the discussion in May. Okay. Anyone who's not going to be able to make that meeting, I know Tommy, who's gone, and Matt, you said you weren't going to be able to make that meeting. If you have thoughts you'd like relayed at that meeting, please reach out to me and share those with me, and I will get them out to the group. Okay. Anything else on that before we call it? Okay. I appreciate everybody coming. Our next meeting tentatively is scheduled for Wednesday, May 11th at 6:30 via Zoom. We're going to continue doing the Zoom thing. If you have agenda items you'd like to see on that agenda, please have those to me by the Thursday prior. Having trouble mathing in my head. So by Thursday the 5th, in the morning would be the best. We typically try to have that agenda together so that it goes out by Thursday afternoon the week before. So if you have agenda items you'd like to have talked about or projects you'd like to see submitted, please have those to me quickly. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for taking a look at Mike's application and Stump Jumper's application. We'll get that in front of the select board, and we'll get David added officially at our next select board meeting, as long as we haven't scared him away. And I appreciate y'all being here. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Sarah makes a motion. Do I have a second? Second from Mike Purcell. Thank you guys. We'll see you next month.
Bye.
Bye.